Welcome to the Twin Bill Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Bolahan. Last week, Ed Kranepool passed away at the age of 79. On August 2nd last year, I had the chance to interview Ed for the release of his book, The Last Miracle, my 18-year journey with the Amazing New York Mets. Back then, we only did print interviews, but there's something special about hearing the Bronx-born Kranepool's accent, so I thought we'd run it this week. He played with guys all the way from Gil Hodges up to Jesse Orosco, all while with the Mets, playing in their disastrous first season ever as a 17-year-old, as well as in their 1969 Miracle Mets season, homering in Game 3 of the World Series. No one has played in more games in Mets history than the left-handed first baseman and outfielder Kranepool, who was inducted into their Hall of Fame in 1990. He broke Hank Greenberg's home run record at his high school and was thought to be the next Lou Gehrig when he signed at age 17. But he never lived up to the hype, although he did make an All-Star team in 1965. He never hit more than 16 homers in a season and had a couple stints in the minors, ending his career as an elite pinch hitter and a Mets legend who had literally seen it all. He finished his career with a .261 batting average, 118 homers, and 614 RBI. Later, he even attempted to purchase the team. In 2019, he had a kidney transplant from, of course, a Mets fan. I was given Ed's number and a time to call him. He was in the Hamptons and seemed to not be expecting my call, and his answers were pretty short. It honestly wasn't the greatest interview ever, but I'll always remember it. Here's the late, great Ed Kranepool. How was the experience of writing the book?
I enjoyed it. It was my career over 18 years in New York, and all the good times we had in New York, we had a lot to talk about, and I had fun, and I hope the New York Met fans read it and enjoy themselves with it and bring it out, and I'll be glad to sign it for them.
Was there anything that you discovered or you forgot and remembered as you were working on the book?
Well, you always pick up things and, you refresh your mind and, things pop out. But most of the stuff I wrote was all positive stuff, and I wasn't too worried about it.
Yeah. I mean, you start your career off, you graduate, 2 days later, you're in L.A. You're sitting next to Casey Stengel. What was that experience like for you?
Well, he was a great manager for the Yankees, and of course you followed him when he joined the Mets. He joined that team, and he offered a lot to the young players. He worked with all of us coming up in the beginning and wanted to teach us and how to play the game. He did that with the Yankees, with some of the great stars over there. And, he tried to pass that along to us, and we enjoyed him for it. We loved him.
That very first game, Sandy Koufax throws a no-hitter. What was going through your mind? Is this what it's going to be like all the time? How was that, seeing a no-hitter in your very first game?
Well, I said this was going to be a long, tough career, and it was. I wound up playing 18 years with the Mets. We lost 100 games for the first 7 years. It wasn't a lot of fun, losing all those years. But we turned it around, and Casey was still part of the organization. And it was fun. And playing in New York is the greatest town in the world because they don't let you forget it. 50, 60 years later, still talking about the 69 Mets. So they're out there for us. So I had a lot to say about it. In New York, I had a lot of things to, recant and, talk telling the people about it. So that's what the book is. It's a light book. It's, I had 2 miracles at the end of my career, and I said it's the time to write it.
You think Koufax was the best you ever saw?
He was, no question about it. For 6 years, he dominated the sport, so we knew he was the best, and unfortunately he had to leave the game due to some bone chips and stuff in his arm.
Yeah.
Today they would straighten that stuff out in a hurry. He still would have been pitching another 4 or 5.
Oh, yeah.
Set all kinds of records. When he left, he won 27 games. So we knew he was the best pitcher in the league if you retire at the top.
Yeah. So you talk about the Miracle Mets. Why did that happen? What made that team so successful?
Well, they came about. They developed their own young players. They kept bringing them up, and one after another. One was better than the next, and we added the Seavers and the Kuzmins. And then, of course, we had pitchers like Nolan Ryan, who didn't develop in New York, but he did pitch good enough to show us he can pitch. And then he goes on to L.A. and sets records out there. But the Mets didn't see the real Nolan Ryan. But we had some great talent, great pitching, good defense. And, we performed, and once we started winning under Gil Hodges, there was no turning us around.
When did you realize that might be a special year? Was there a moment you thought, hey, this might actually, something might be happening?
I guess in the middle of the season we started beating some ball clubs we'd never won before against the California teams. We go out there and lose 10, 12 games, but then certainly we started to produce a little bit, so it was pretty good.
How important was Gil Hodges' leadership to that team?
Well, without a foundation, without a leader, you have nothing. So, you had disorder, but he developed the young players. He taught us how to play a game. He started in the spring training. Very tough disciplinarian, had a strong hand. One set of rules, 25 players.
One of the most iconic moments of that season, the Black Cat against Chicago. You were on the bench, I believe. But what was the reaction of the guys on the bench as the Cats running on the field?
Well, we knew there were a lot of them around because they had animals under the stands, eating all the popcorn and stuff, and the fans are throwing it out there. So, there were a lot of reasons there were cats there. The Mets didn't bring one out for Leo DeRocher, even though he circled, I think it was the third baseman, Sano.
Yeah.
When he was on the on-deck circle, he came out and he got nervous, the cat, because he heard all the fans. 50,000 people were there to watch him play, so that made it difficult.
So you're coming off the high, you win the World Series, you hit a homer in the World Series. Next season you get sent down. You're 25 years old. How are you dealing with that? How did you get through that?
Well, it was difficult, but we had different relationships with Gil Hodges, and that was at the height of my career. But we came back, we fought back, we played hard. We came back to the major leagues, and I had 2 good seasons for Gil, and then it passes on. And it changes again, and, the rotation switches, and you never know what's going to happen, but you keep plugging away, and, you endure, and you hope you're going to win again. And unfortunately, the Mets never recovered, and, it was straight downhill. So another 7 or 8 years, I finally retired. And I stayed out of the game of baseball, but it's good to be back and looking at it.
At the end of your career, you became known as a fantastic pinch hitter, legendary pinch hitter, almost hit 500 for a season pinch hitting. What goes into the art of pinch hitting?
Well, you got to perform, and you got to do it right now.
Yeah.
You can't let it, there's no tomorrow, so you just are ready every time you get an opportunity.
It was a bumpy road for you in your career, but you stayed with the Mets for all 18 years.
Yep.
How were you able to stick around for that long? You saw so many of your teammates shipped out. Why did you get to stick around when no one else did?
Well, you just said it. I was the best pinch hitter. So when you can hit, you're going to stay around and survive. So I just did my job, and I kept my nose clean. And just performed. And since it was New York was my home, there was no reason to force a trade, or if you could. You were their property. You didn't have free agency. You couldn't, play out your options. So you didn't have a whole lot of choice. It was either play for the Mets, or if they don't trade you, you're finished. So do what you can and be positive about it, and hopefully your relationship stays.
The story of your kidney donation is pretty incredible. How are you doing now?
I'm feeling great. I have the kidney now 4 years, working well, and I'm out there doing things, and just taking care of my wife the last 2 years. She's had pancreatic cancer.
How's she doing?
She survived. They beat it. They cut the growth out, and they created part of the operation was the Whipple operation, which is very serious. Most people don't recover from it. But she's doing well. She's feeling better than me. So we're keeping up with each other. So she was the second part of the miracle.
Yeah.
Mine was my kidney. Hers was her pancreatic cancer. So we're both doing great, and we love talking to the Met fans.
That's fantastic. You are the real life Mr. Met. What does being a Met mean to you? What does that mean to you now?
Well, it's my whole career. I started as a Met, and I'm finishing up as a Met. So that's all we can hope for and look forward to.
Yeah. Well, Ed, thank you so much for the time. I truly, truly appreciate it. I loved reading the book. Mets fans, baseball fans will love it. And it's great to hear you're doing so well. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care. That was Ed Kranepool. His book, The Last Miracle, My 18-Year Journey with the Amazin New York Mets, is out now. We talk to people in and around baseball literature every week on the podcast and publish around 50 writers every year in the Twin Bill Literary Journal. You can support us on Patreon. Until next time,